I never thought betrayal could come from inside my own bloodline. But there I was, sitting in my worn-out recliner in the quiet of my suburban home, when the truth hit me like a freight train. My daughter, the little girl I raised with my own two hands, had spent every cent of my life savings. And she didn't spend on herself, or on her son, or even on keeping me comfortable in my old age. No, she gave it all to her husband, a man I had warned her about 1,000 times, a man with a record, a criminal. My name is Earl Whitman, and I'm 59 years old. I worked 35 years at the Ford plant just outside Detroit. I put in overtime, double shifts, weekends. I sacrificed my back, my knees, and my dreams so that my daughter, my only child, Melissa, could have the kind of life I never had. But as I sat staring at the bank statement that morning, I realized everything I had worked for was gone. My retirement fund, the nest egg I had saved since I was 22, the pension I thought would carry me into old age, it was all drained. A lifetime of sweat and sacrifice vanished with a few swipes of her signature. Melissa had always been my pride. I raised her alone after her mother passed when Melissa was just 7 years old. I remember brushing her hair before school, packing her lunch in a pink plastic box, and sitting through every school recital with a bouquet of dollar store flowers in my hands. She used to run into my arms and say, "Daddy, you're my hero." Those words kept me alive back then. But somewhere along the line, I lost her. Her husband, Travis, was the kind of man who never looked you in the eye. He had a smile that was too slick and hands that were never clean. I had heard whispers about him, drugs, fights, petty theft, but Melissa swore he had changed. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that love could turn a man around. But I should have trusted my gut. The strange things began small. A missing checkbook here, a phone call from the bank there. Then Melissa stopped visiting me as often. When she did, her eyes darted around, restless, like she was hiding something. She'd say things like, "Don't worry about money, Dad. Travis has everything handled." But Travis never had anything handled. What he had was a hunger for easy cash, for shortcuts, for my daughter's blind loyalty, and now for my life savings. When I confronted Melissa, my voice shaking with a mixture of fear and fury, she didn't even look sorry. She crossed her arms and said, "Dad, you're old. You don't need all that money. Travis and I have a future to build. You've lived your life. Now let us live ours." Her words cut deeper than any knife. Old. She called me old like I was useless. Like the man who worked himself half to death for her was nothing but a burden. But before I could even speak, before I could even tell her how much she'd broken me, another voice came from the doorway. "Grandpa, don't worry. I've already taken care of everything." It is my grandson, Landon, just 18 years old. Tall, lean, with his mother's eyes but not her blindness. He looked at me with a calmness that unsettled me, like he knew something I didn't. I wanted to ask him what he meant, what exactly he had taken care of. But the way Melissa froze, the way Travis's smirk faltered when Landon spoke, told me this wasn't just talk. Something had already been set in motion. And in that moment, I realized the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The night after Landon said those words, "Grandpa, don't worry. I've already taken care of everything," I barely slept. My house felt colder than usual, though the thermostat glowed a steady 70 degrees. I kept staring at the ceiling, wondering how an 18-year-old boy, still fresh out of high school, could possibly take care of something so heavy. What did he know that I didn't? I rolled out of bed around 4 a.m., poured myself black coffee into the chipped Detroit Tigers mug I've had since the 80s, and sat by the window. My neighborhood was quiet. Suburban streets lined with maple trees and neatly trimmed lawns, the kind of place where people waved when they passed by. But all I could feel was emptiness. The betrayal gnawed at me. Melissa was my world, my only child, and now she had cut me so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover. As I sipped the bitter coffee, my mind drifted back through time. I remembered the day she was born. It was 1988, and I was 24 years old. When the nurse handed me that tiny pink bundle, I swore to God I'd protect her with my life. Losing her mother to cancer a few years later only made that vow stronger. I became both parents, braiding her hair, learning how to bake cookies for her school fundraiser, even practicing a clumsy version of ballet in our living room when she needed to rehearse. She was a bright kid, straight A's, captain of her debate team, the kind of girl teachers wrote glowing letters about. I thought I'd done it right. I thought I'd beaten the statistics, that single dads couldn't raise daughters well. I was proud, so proud. But life is a way of twisting things. Melissa went off to college in Chicago. That's where she met Travis. I remember the first time she brought him home for Thanksgiving. He walked into my house with flashy sneakers, tattoos crawling up his arms, and an attitude that screamed trouble. He shook my hand with fingers covered in cheap rings, his grip weak and sweaty. Something about him set my teeth on edge. I pulled Melissa aside that night and whispered, "Baby, he's not good for you." She rolled her eyes like I was some old fool who didn't understand the world anymore. "Dad," she said, "you don't get it. He's been through a lot. He just needs someone to believe in him." I wanted to argue, but her face lit up when she looked at him. And I thought, maybe love really could change a man. Maybe I was just being overprotective. But years passed, and Travis never changed. He drifted from one shady job to another. Melissa picked up extra shifts, always covering for him. And then the requests began. "Dad, can you help us with rent this month? Dad, Travis's car broke down. Can you loan us $1,000? Dad, this is just temporary. Things will get better." I gave, and gave, and gave. Because I loved her. Because I didn't want her to suffer. Because I couldn't bear to see her sink while I had something, anything, to offer. But every dollar I handed over was like a thread unraveling from the fabric of my life. Now here I was almost 60, staring at a bank account that was nothing but zeros. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. Melissa didn't just steal money. She stole the years of overtime I worked, the nights I came home with grease-stained hands and aching bones, the weekends I missed fishing trips because I was saving for a future. She stole the very meaning of my sacrifice. And yet, in that hollow darkness, there was Landon. Landon wasn't like his mother. He had a sharpness in his eyes, a quiet strength that reminded me of soldiers I used to see on TV documentaries. He'd always been closer to me than a Travis. When he was a boy, he'd ride his bike over to my house and sit on the porch with me while I grill burgers. He'd ask questions about everything: cars, history, even the way I fixed the leaky faucet. He wasn't a perfect kid, no teenager is, but he listened. He respected me. And when he looked at me last night and said, "I've already taken care of everything," there was no hesitation in his voice. Still, what could that mean? The next morning, I found him sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling on his laptop. Melissa and Travis hadn't come back after our confrontation, and for that I was thankful. "Landon," I said carefully, lowering myself into the chair across from him. "What did you mean last night?" He closed the laptop slowly, almost like he was hiding something. "Grandpa, you don't need to worry. I've been watching things. I know what they've been doing." I frowned. "What do you mean, watching?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Mom and Travis, they've been lying to you for years. I've seen the way he moves money around, the people he talks to. I knew this day was coming. So I started planning." My heart thudded in my chest. Planning what? He hesitated. "A way to fix it. A way to make sure you don't lose everything." The calmness in his tone shook me. He wasn't bragging. He wasn't being dramatic. He was dead serious. But he was just a boy, my grandson, and the thought of him getting tangled in Travis's schemes made my stomach churn. "Landon," I said, gripping his hand, "you can't fight Travis. He's dangerous. He's not just a screw-up. He's a criminal." "I know," Landon replied. His jaw tightened. "That's why I did something about it." My grip loosened. A cold chill spread through me. "Did something about it?" "Landon," I whispered, "what did you do?" He looked me straight in the eye, and the words that came next made my blood run cold. Landon's eyes never wavered as he spoke. For an 18-year-old, he carried himself with a weight far beyond his years. His voice was steady, calm, almost frighteningly composed. "Grandpa," he said, "I hacked Travis's accounts." For a moment, I didn't breathe. The words felt foreign, dangerous, like they belonged to someone else's world. "You what?" I whispered. "I hacked him," Landon repeated. "His bank accounts, his email, his phone, everything. I've been watching him for months." The mug of my hand trembled. Coffee sloshed over the rim and dripped onto the table, but I barely noticed. My grandson, my only grandson, was admitting to a crime as casually as if he'd said he'd mowed the lawn. Landon, I said slowly, my throat dry. You can't just break into people's accounts. That's illegal. You go to jail. He leaned forward, his face determined. Grandpa, Travis is worse than you think. He's not just some deadbeat with a record. He's running scams, laundering money, even dealing under the table. He's dragging Mom down with him. If I hadn't stepped in, you'd have lost more than your savings. You'd have lost your home, your pension, maybe even your freedom. I froze. My freedom? What do you mean? Landon tapped his laptop. Travis has been using your name, your social security number. He's been setting up fake accounts tied back to you. If the feds had caught on, they would have come knocking on your door. The room tilted. My chest tightened like a vice. I thought losing my money was the worst of it, but this was darker. This was a pit I never even saw coming. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. How do you know all this? Because I've seen it, Landon said firmly. I downloaded the files. I tracked the transactions. He's sloppy, Grandpa. He thought nobody would notice, but I noticed. I stared at him, torn between pride and terror. Pride that my grandson was brave enough, smart enough to protect me. Terror that he'd put himself in the crosshairs of a man like Travis. Landon, I whispered, if Travis finds out what you've done. He won't. Landon interrupted. I cover my tracks. And besides, he paused, his eyes narrowing. I don't think Travis is as invincible as everyone thinks he is. I've got leverage. That word, leverage, echoed in my ears. It sounded dangerous, like fire in the hands of a child. The memory of Travis's smug grin burned in my mind. How many times had I swallowed my anger just to keep the peace? How many times had I let him lie and bleed me dry? I thought I was protecting Melissa, but maybe all I'd done was enable her blindness. Now my grandson was standing where I couldn't, fighting battles I should have fought years ago. But he was just 18, still a kid, and the thought of him squaring off against Travis terrified me. Landon, I said firmly, you need to delete everything. Right now, before it's too late. Let me handle this. He shook his head. Grandpa, no, you can't handle this. You're one man, and Travis isn't playing small. He's connected to people, bad people. If you try to fight him straight up, you'll lose. But if we play it smart, if we use what I've found, we can end this. We can take him down. My hands shook against the table. Take him down. Those words sounded final. Heavy. You're talking about revenge, I said quietly. No, Landon replied. I'm talking about justice. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The clock on the wall ticked, every second stretching out like a lifetime. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made for Melissa. The years of labor, the broken bones, the sleepless nights, the quiet dinners alone after her mother passed. I thought about how Travis had slithered into our lives, turning her against me, draining me dry. And I thought about how Melissa had stood in my living room and called me old, as if my worth had expired like a carton of milk. But Landon, he was still here. He was still fighting for me. Show me, I said finally. Landon's lips curled into a faint smile. He opened his laptop and spun it around. My eyes widened to the screen. There were folders, dozens of them, labeled with names, numbers, accounts. He clicked through them one by one, showing me bank transfers, offshore accounts, receipts with Travis's name, even screenshots of messages that hinted at deals I didn't dare imagine. It was all there. Proof. Evidence. Enough to bury Travis if it ever reached the right hands. My chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not sorrow, but power. For once, I wasn't the one in the dark. But then the fear crept back in. Because power always comes with a price. Landon, I said slowly, what's the plan? What are you going to do with this? He closed the laptop. His eyes, so much like his mother's but sharper, colder, met mine. I'm going to make him pay, he said. Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they chill me to the bone. What do you mean, make him pay? I asked carefully. Landon stood, his shoulders squared, his voice low. Travis took everything from you. He manipulated Mom. He thought he could use you as a scapegoat. I'm not letting that stand. I've already set things in motion. My heart skipped. What did you do? Before he could answer, there was a loud knock on the door. Sharp, aggressive, the kind of knock that made my stomach drop. Landon froze. We locked eyes. The knock came again, louder this time. Earl Whitman, a voice shouted from outside. Open the door. Federal agents. We need to speak with you. My blood turned to ice. Landon's face remained calm, but I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. He whispered one word to me before the knocking grew louder. Trust. And then, the pounding on the front door rattled through the house like thunder. My stomach twisted into knots, my palms slick with sweat. Earl Whitman. Federal agents. The voice boomed again, deep and commanding. I glanced at Landon. He didn't flinch. He didn't move. His face was calm, almost too calm for an 18-year-old boy staring down a situation that could ruin both our lives. My mind raced. If Travis had really been using my social security number for his scams, then the feds might think I was the criminal. If Landon's hacking had left a trail, they might think he was. Either way, this knock could be the end of everything. Grandpa, Landon whispered, his voice low and steady. Listen to me. Open the door. Don't lie to them. But don't tell them everything either. Not yet. I stared at him, my heart hammering. What do you mean, not everything? You'll understand, he said quickly. Trust me. That word again, trust. I wanted to trust him. God, I wanted to. But he was still just a boy, and this was the FBI. The pounding came again, harder this time. Mr. Whitman, open the door or we'll force entry. My knees felt weak as I shuffled to the door. My hand trembled on the knob. With a shaky breath, I opened it. Two men in dark suits stood on my porch, badges raised. They were tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Behind them, a black SUV idled at the curb. Mr. Whitman? The taller agent asked. Yes, I croaked. I'm Agent Crawford. This is Agent Ramirez. We're with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. May we come in? My throat was too dry to answer, so I just stepped aside. They entered briskly, their shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. Landon remained at the kitchen table, laptop closed, hands folded neatly in front of him like he'd been expecting them. The agents scanned the room quickly, then turned back to me. Mr. Whitman, Agent Crawford began, we have reason to believe your identity has been used in connection with several fraudulent accounts and money laundering operations. We need to ask you some questions. My legs buckled, and I dropped into the recliner. I didn't do anything. I stammered. I swear. I worked my whole life. I don't even know how to turn on half the apps my daughter uses. I'd never. We're not saying you did. Agent Ramirez cut in, his tone softer. But your name is all over this. If you didn't set up those accounts, someone else did. I opened my mouth to speak, but Landon beat me to it. It was Travis, he said flatly. Both agents turned to him. And you are? Landon Whitman, he said confidently. Earl's grandson, and I can prove Travis did it. My breath caught. Landon, he ignored me. He stood, walked to the kitchen counter, and slid his laptop toward the agents. Everything you need is here. Bank statements, wire transfers, fake IDs he used, even screenshots of conversations. Travis isn't just running small-time scams. He's connected to a bigger network, and he's been using my grandpa as a cover. The agents exchanged a glance. Agent Crawford's brow furrowed. How did you get this information? Landon didn't blink. Let's just say Travis isn't as smart as he thinks he is. He left doors unlocked. My heart stopped. He was admitting it. Admitting he hacked into a federal suspect's accounts, right in front of federal agents. But to my surprise, neither agent snapped cuffs on him. Instead, they leaned over the laptop, scrolling through the files. Their eyes widened slightly as they clicked deeper into the folders. This is substantial, Agent Ramirez murmured. More than substantial, Crawford agreed. He looked back at Landon. If this is real, it changes things. But we'll need to verify all of it. It's real, Landon said firmly. I've been tracking him for months. He drained my grandpa's savings. He's planning to take more. And if you don't stop him, someone innocent is going to pay for his mess. The agent studied him for a moment, then turned back to me. Mr. Whitman, Crawford said, you're not under arrest. But we need you to stay available while we process this. We may need more from you and from your grandson. Relief washed through me so hard I nearly cried. I I wasn't going to jail. Not yet. But relief gave way to dread just as quickly. Because if the feds were circling Travis, then Travis would know someone had betrayed him. And when he found out who, the agents closed the laptop and carried it with them. "We'll be in touch," Crawford said as they left. The door shut. The black SUV pulled away. Silence filled the house. I turned to Landon, my voice trembling. "What have you done?" He looked at me, his face calm, almost cold. "I've set the trap. Now we wait." The hours crawled by after they left. I tried to keep busy, washing dishes, pacing the floor, but my mind kept replaying the knock, the badges, the way Landon had stood there like a soldier instead of a teenager. Part of me was proud. Another part of me was terrified. Because traps don't just catch prey, they sometimes catch the hunter too. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. "Landon," I said, "you need to tell me everything. No more secrets. What exactly are you planning?" He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Travis thinks he's untouchable. He thinks Mom will always cover for him, that you'll always stay quiet. But now the FBI is watching. Every step he takes is under a microscope. All I had to do was shine a light on the dirt he left behind." "That's not a plan," I snapped. "That's poking a bear. What happens when he finds out? What happens when he comes after you?" Landon's jaw tightened. "He won't touch me, because by the time he figures it out, it'll be too late." His words chilled me. He sounded less like my grandson and more like a strategist, someone hardened by battles he shouldn't even be fighting. And then the phone rang. We both froze. The sound sliced through the quiet like a knife. Slowly, I picked up the receiver. "Hello." At first, nothing but static. Then a voice. Low, menacing, familiar. "You think you're clever, old man." Travis's voice hissed through the line. "You think I don't know what you're doing?" My heart stopped. "Travis, you and that little punk of yours," he sneered. "You think you can play games with me? You don't know who you're messing with. You don't know what I'm capable of." The line went dead. I turned to Landon, my hand shaking, the phone slipping from my grip. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with fire. "He knows," I whispered. "He knows it was us." Landon's lips pressed into a thin line. He stood slowly, like a man preparing for war. "Good," he said. "That means the game has finally started." The night after Travis's call was the longest of my life. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every passing car made my chest tighten, waiting for it to stop outside my home. I kept the lights dim, pacing from the kitchen to the living room, glancing out the window every few minutes like a prisoner expecting the guard's baton. Landon, on the other hand, sat calmly at the kitchen table. His laptop was open, his fingers gliding across the keys, his eyes fixed on the glowing screen. He looked more like a commander plotting a campaign than a teenager. "You're too calm," I muttered, finally breaking the silence. He didn't look up. "That's because I know what's coming." His words made me shiver. "Landon," I said, my voice low, "you don't understand what kind of man Travis is. He's not just some thief. He's dangerous. He's the kind of man who doesn't fight fair. If he feels cornered, he'll do anything, to protect himself." This time Landon looked up. His eyes were sharp, almost defiant. "And I'm counting on that." I froze. "What do you mean?" He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "When people like Travis get desperate, they make mistakes. They get sloppy. They show their true colors. And when they do," he tapped the laptop, "I'll be ready." I stared at him, torn between admiration and fear. He was young, too young for this kind of burden, but his mind was sharp. Sharper than mine, maybe. He wasn't just playing defense, he was setting traps. Still, my gut twisted with unease, because men like Travis didn't go down without a fight. The next day, the fight came to my front yard. It was late morning. I was out back, watering the patchy lawn I'd been trying to keep alive, when I heard the roar of an engine. A black Dodge Charger screeched to a stop in front of my house, its tires spitting gravel. My heart dropped. The driver's door slammed open, and Travis stepped out. He wore a leather jacket despite the heat, his tattoos peeking from beneath the sleeves. His eyes were wild, his jaw clenched. Behind him, Melissa climbed out of the passenger seat. My daughter, my pride, my heartbreak. She looked tired, worn down, but her arms were crossed, her chin lifted in defiance. "Dad," she shouted. marching up the driveway. "We need to talk." I set the hose down, my hands trembling. Landon appeared at the back door, standing tall, his face unreadable. "What do you want, Melissa?" I asked, my voice strained. Travis sneered. "What do you think we want, old man? You've been running your mouth, talking to people you shouldn't. Now the feds are sniffing around my business. You think that's a coincidence?" I swallowed hard. "They came to me. I didn't ask for this. I didn't do anything wrong." Travis stepped closer, his finger jabbing the air. "Don't play dumb with me. You've always hated me. You've been trying to turn Melissa against me from day one. And now you've got that little punk of a grandson sticking his nose where it doesn't belong." Melissa's eyes flickered at the mention of Landon, but she stayed silent. Landon moved past me, stepping into the yard. His voice was steady, his shoulders squared. "You mean the truth doesn't belong, Travis? Is that what you're saying?" Travis's face twisted with rage. "You little—" He lunged forward, but Melissa grabbed his arm. "Travis, stop," she hissed. "Not here. Not now." For a moment, the tension hung heavy in the air. I could feel the neighbors' curtains twitching, eyes watching from behind glass. Suburban streets had long memories, and scenes like this never stayed private. Finally, Travis pulled back, spitting on the ground. "This isn't over. You hear me? You think the feds are going to save you? They won't. When I'm done, you'll wish you never crossed me." He turned on his heel, stormed back to the car, and slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. Melissa lingered for a moment, her eyes meeting mine. For a split second, I saw the little girl she used to be, the girl who once called me her hero. Then the mask slipped back into place, and she turned away, climbing into the car beside him. The Charger roared off, leaving the smell of burnt rubber behind. I stood frozen, my chest heaving, my knees weak. Landon placed a hand on my shoulder. "See," he said quietly. "He's desperate, and desperate men make mistakes." That night, I couldn't sleep again. Every shadow looked like Travis. Every noise sounded like danger. I kept replaying Melissa's face in my mind, wondering if she believed him or if she was too far gone to see the truth. Around midnight, I heard footsteps in the kitchen. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bed and crept down the hall. It was only Landon, hunched over his laptop, the screen casting a ghostly glow across his face. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He didn't look up. "Following the money." "Landon," I sighed, lowering the bat. "You're going to get yourself in trouble." He finally looked at me, his eyes burning with determination. "Grandpa, you already lost everything. He stole your savings, your trust, even your reputation. If I don't do this, he wins. Do you really want to spend the rest of your life watching him destroy everything you built?" His words pierced me. I thought about the years I'd spent breaking my back at the plant, the nights I went without so Melissa could have what she needed, the savings I guarded like treasure. And now it was gone. All of it. "No," I whispered. "I don't want that." "Then let me finish what I started," Landon said firmly. I looked at him for a long time. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was standing where I should have stood, doing what I should have done years ago. Maybe he was reckless. Maybe he was in over his head. But he was the only one fighting for me now. I nodded. "Okay, but we do this together." For the first time in days, he smiled. The next morning, we got our first sign that Travis was spiraling. The FBI agents returned. This time, they weren't calm. They had questions, lots of them. Agent Crawford paced my living room, his jaw tight. "We've been tracking Travis's movements since yesterday. He's spooked. He's moving money around faster than we can keep up. Offshore accounts, shell companies, it's a mess. But he's sloppy. He's making mistakes." Landon leaned forward. "That's good, right? It means we can catch him." Crawford hesitated. "Maybe, but it also means he's dangerous right now. Cornered animals lash out. And if he knows you're the ones who tipped us off—" He trailed off, his eyes flicking to me. My stomach twisted. "He came to my house yesterday. Threatened us." Ramirez cursed under his breath. "That's not good." Crawford's gaze hardened. "Listen to me carefully. Do not be alone. Do not confront him. Let's handle this. Understand?" I nodded, but I knew Travis wouldn't wait for the FBI. He was already circling, already baring his teeth. When the agents left, Landon turned to me, his face set. "We can't just sit here and wait. If we let him control the board, we'll always be on defense." I frowned. "What are you suggesting?" His voice dropped to a whisper. We bait him, force him to make a move we can use against him. The idea chilled me, but deep down I knew he was right. We couldn't hide forever. Ow, I asked. A slow smile crept across his face. Leave that to me. That evening, Melissa called. Her voice was tight, almost frantic. Dad, we need to talk. Alone. My chest tightened. Melissa, if this is about Travis. It is, she snapped. Then her tone softened, almost pleading. Please, Dad, just meet me. Tonight. Don't bring Landon. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed it was a trap. But it was my daughter, the girl I raised, the girl I still loved, no matter how much she'd hurt me. Where? I asked quietly. She gave me an address, a motel on the edge of town. When I hung up, Landon was already watching me. You're not going, he said flatly. She's my daughter, I whispered. If she needs me, she doesn't need you. She's luring you. Travis put her up to it. You go, you won't come back. I clenched my fists, torn in two. My love for Melissa on one side, my fear for Landon on the other. I have to try, I said finally. Landon's jaw tightened. Then I'm coming with you. No, I said firmly. She asked for me. Just me. For the first time, Landon's composure cracked. His voice trembled as he said, Grandpa, if you walk into that motel, you may not walk out. And if I lose you, I lose everything. His words nearly broke me. But a father's heart doesn't stop beating, no matter how many times it's broken. I have to go, I whispered. And with that, I picked up my keys, stepped into the night, and drove toward the unknown. The neon sign of the Silver Pines Motel flickered in the night, buzzing faintly like a dying insect. I pulled into the gravel lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. A row of tired-looking doors lined the strip, paint peeling, curtains drawn. A place where secrets were buried, not uncovered. Melissa's car was parked near the far end. The sight of it sent a shiver through me. I sat for a moment, the engine idling, my mind screaming, turn back, turn back. But then I thought of her as a child, her tiny hand clutching mine on the way to school, her laughter when I carried her on my shoulders. That little girl was still in there somewhere. I had to believe that. I killed the engine, stepped out, and tucked my phone into my pocket. Landon had begged me not to come, and maybe he was right, but some battles a man has to face alone. Room 12. That was the number she'd given me. The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked down the row. My heartbeat pounded louder with each step. When I reached the door, I paused, took a deep breath, and knocked. It opened a crack, almost instantly. Melissa's face appeared in the gap, her eyes darting left and right like a hunted animal. Dad, she whispered, pulling me inside. The room was dim, smelling of cigarettes and stale beer. The blinds were shut tight, a single lamp casting shadows across the faded carpet. Melissa paced like she couldn't keep still, wringing her hands. You came, she said breathlessly. I didn't think you would. I had to, I said softly. You're my daughter. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe sorrow, but it vanished just as quickly. Melissa, I said, stepping closer. What's going on? Why did you call me here? Her lips trembled. Because I don't know what to do. Travis, he's losing it, Dad. He says you've ruined everything. He's talking about, she broke off, her voice cracking. My chest tightened. About what? She looked at me, eyes glistening. About making you disappear. The words hit me like a hammer. Melissa, I whispered, reaching for her hand. You don't have to stay with him. You don't owe him your life. You can walk away. Right now. Come home. Her hand twitched in mine, but before she could answer, the bathroom door creaked open. Travis stepped out. My blood turned to ice. Well, he drawled, his grin wide and cruel. The old man took the bait. Melissa flinched, backing away. Travis, please, Shut up, he snapped, his eyes never leaving me. You think you can play me, Earl? You think you can run to the feds, drag my wife into this, and walk away? I forced myself to stand tall, though my knees threatened to buckle. You've already taken everything from me, Travis. What more do you want? He chuckled darkly. Everything? Oh no, you still got one thing left. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a pistol. Melissa gasped. Travis, no. He waved her off. Move aside, babe. This ain't about you. This is between me and him. My heart thundered, but I kept my voice steady. Killing me won't fix your problems. It'll just prove everything I've told them about you. His grin widened. What problems? By the time anyone finds your body, I'll be long gone. Mexico, maybe. Start fresh. And no one will miss an old man who couldn't mind his business. Melissa stepped between us, her arms spread. Travis, stop. He's my father. Travis snarled. And he's been trying to poison you against me since day one. Can't you see that? Tears streamed down Melissa's face. Maybe he was right. The words hit Travis like a slap. His eyes went wide, his nostrils flaring. What did you just say? Melissa's voice trembled but didn't break. Maybe you're the one who's poisoned everything. For the first time, Travis's mask cracked. His face twisted with rage. You ungrateful, he spat, raising the gun. I moved without thinking. Years of fatherhood, of sacrifice, of love surged through me. I lunged, shoving Melissa aside, grabbing for his arm. The gun went off with a deafening crack, the bullet tearing into the wall inches from my head. We crashed against the dresser, the lamp toppling, the room plunging into shadows. Travis was strong, fueled by fury, but I held on, my hands clawing at his wrist. The gun fired again, the muzzle flash blinding, the shot ringing in my ears. Melissa screamed. Somewhere outside, I thought I heard footsteps, voices. FBI, open up. Travis's eyes widened in panic. He shoved me hard, sending me sprawling onto the bed. In the chaos, the door burst open, agents flooding the room, weapons raised. Drop the gun, Crawford barked. Travis froze, his chest heaving, the pistol still in his hand. For a moment, I thought he might do it, might try to go out in a blaze. But then Melissa whispered, broken and desperate, Please, Travis, don't. His shoulders slumped. Slowly, reluctantly, he lowered the gun. The agents swarmed him, yanking his arms behind his back, slapping cuffs on his wrists. He roared in fury, thrashing like a wild animal, but they held firm. Crawford glanced at me, his eyes sharp. You okay, sir? I nodded weakly, my body trembling, my ears still ringing. Melissa stood in the corner, shaking, her hands over her mouth. As they dragged Travis out, he twisted to glare at me, his voice like venom. This ain't over, old man. You hear me? This ain't over. Then he was gone, hauled into the night, his curses echoing through the parking lot. The room fell silent, the only sound my ragged breathing. I looked at Melissa. She looked back at me, tears streaming, her body trembling like a leaf. For the first time in years, I saw something real in her eyes, fear, regret, and maybe, just maybe, the faint spark of the daughter I once knew. I opened my arms. She hesitated only a moment before collapsing into me, sobbing. And as I held her, shaking, broken, I knew the battle wasn't over. Travis was gone, for now, but the war for my family's soul had only just begun. The morning after Travis's arrest, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I couldn't bring myself to drink. The house was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Outside, the September sun rose over the rooftops of our little town, but it couldn't chase away the darkness clinging to my chest. Landon padded into the kitchen, still in his pajamas, his hair sticking up in all directions. He poured himself a glass of orange juice and sat across from me, studying my face. You didn't sleep, he said. I shook my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The gun. Your mother crying. Him screaming it wasn't over. Landon's jaw tightened. He's in custody, Grandpa. He's done. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to. But I'd lived long enough to know some men could cause more trouble behind bars than they ever did outside. Before I could answer, a knock sounded at the door. My heart jumped, but when I opened it, Agent Crawford stood there, his tie slightly loosened, his face as stern as ever. Morning, Mr. Whitman. Landon. We invited him in, and he wasted no time. Travis isn't holding. We've got him on weapons charges, fraud, and identity theft. That's enough to bury him if the evidence holds. But there's something you need to understand. I didn't like the way his voice lowered, the way his eyes narrowed. Travis wasn't working alone, Crawford said. The files your grandson uncovered. Those accounts connect to a larger network. People who don't take kindly to losing money or attention. Travis was sloppy, but his friends aren't. A chill ran through me. You mean they might come after us? It's possible, Crawford said bluntly, especially if they think you're the reason he got caught. He leaned forward. Do you have somewhere safe to go? Family out of town. I glanced at Landon. This is our family. Right here. Crawford nodded, though his frown deepened. Then you need to keep your eyes open. Don't take strange calls. Don't open the door without knowing who's there. We'll do what we can, but protection is limited. With that, he left, his words echoing in the silence he left behind. Melissa showed up later that afternoon. She looked worn down, her eyes red and swollen, her shoulders hunched like she was carrying the weight of the world. Dad, she whispered when I opened the door. I hesitated, memories of the motel flashing in my mind. But then I saw the tremble in her lips, the bruises on her wrist where Travis must have grabbed her, and my heart softened. I stepped aside. She came in slowly, her eyes darting around like she wasn't sure she belonged anymore. Landon didn't say a word, just crossed his arms and glared at her from the couch. I'm sorry, she blurted, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't see him for who he was until it was too late. I swallowed hard. Melissa, you defended him while he drained everything I worked for. You stood by while he called me worthless. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought he loved me. I thought if I just stayed, if I just obeyed, it would all work out. But last night, her voice broke. When he pulled that gun on you, I realized he never loved me at all. He just wanted control. The room was silent except for her sobs. Landon finally spoke, his tone sharp. It took a gun to our grandpa's head for you to figure that out. Landon, I warned softly, but he shook his head. No, Grandpa. She needs to hear it. You gave up everything for her, and she let that monster take all and call you an old man like you were nothing. Melissa flinched as if he'd slapped her. I know, she whispered. I can't undo it, but I want to try to make it right. Please let me try. I studied her face, the broken girl behind the woman, and felt my anger melting into something heavier, sorrow. You're still my daughter, I said quietly. That'll never change. But trust that'll take time. She nodded, tears dripping on her hands. That night, I sat on the porch alone, the crickets chirping in the darkness. My bones ached, but it wasn't just age. It was the weight of years of sacrifice, betrayal, and fear. The phone rang inside. I almost didn't answer, but something pulled me to it. Hello, I said, my voice cautious. There was a pause, then a familiar hiss. You think bars can hold me? Travis's voice slithered through the line, low and venomous. You think this is over, Earl? My people are out there. They don't need me to tell them what to do. My throat went dry. Leave my family alone, Travis. He chuckled darkly. Family? You don't have a family. You have a daughter who betrayed you, and a grandson who's too stupid to know when he's in over his head. You'll all pay, one way or another. The line went dead. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, the night pressing in around me. The fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Behind me, Landon appeared in the doorway, his eyes sharp, his voice steady. Was it him? I nodded slowly. Landon stepped onto the porch, his shoulders squared. Then it's time we stop waiting for him to strike. It's time we end this on our terms. The days after Travis's call dragged like heavy chains. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside the window set my nerves on edge. I was a man who had worked 40 years at a factory, who dreamed of nothing more than retirement and quiet nights on the porch. But now I was living in a battlefield I hadn't chosen, my family caught in the crossfire. Landon didn't flinch. If anything, Travis's threats seemed to sharpen him, harden him. I'd catch him at the dining table, laptop glowing in the dark, lines of code and maps of bank accounts spilling across the screen. He moved with purpose, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with something I didn't fully recognize in an 18-year-old boy. One night, I finally sat across from him. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. Whatever you're doing, it's consuming you. He looked up, and in his eyes I saw both the boy I'd raised and the man he was becoming. Grandpa, he said, Travis thinks he can control us with fear. But fear only works if we sit still. We can't sit still anymore. I folded my hands. So what's your plan, Landon? His voice dropped low, steady. We cut off his power. His network runs on money. Without it, he's nothing. And I've found where they're hiding it. Landon explained it with a clarity that both scared me and filled me with pride. Travis wasn't just a small-time scammer. He was tied into a laundering circle that stretched across states, using shell companies, fake charities, even retirement accounts to wash dirty money. But here's the thing, Landon said, clicking through files on the screen. They got sloppy. One of the accounts links back to a storage facility right here in town. Cash drops, physical ledgers, backup drives. It's their fail-safe. If the feds get that, the whole network collapses. My heart pounded. And you want to get it? Landon's lips pressed into a thin line. Not want. Need. If we hand that over, Travis loses his last card. And he can't touch us again. It was madness. It was dangerous. But looking at him, at the determination carved into his young face, I knew nothing I said would change his mind. So I did the only thing I could. I said, then you're not going alone. The storage facility sat on the edge of town, chain-link fence topped with rusting barbed wire. Rows of metal doors stretched into the darkness, each padlocked, each number faded by years of sun. We parked down the road, headlights off, hearts thudding in our chests. Landon wore a backpack slung over his shoulder. I carried nothing but a flashlight and the weight of a father's regrets. Unit 47, Landon whispered. That's the one. We slipped through a gap in the fence, crouching low, our breath clouding in the cool night air. Every crunch of gravel sounded like an alarm. When we reached the door, Landon knelt, pulling tools from his bag. He worked the lock with steady hands, no hesitation. Within minutes, the padlock snapped open. He pushed the door up. Inside, the smell of dust and old paper hit me. Cardboard boxes stacked high, duffel bags bulging with cash, file cabinets crammed with folders. It was a dragon's hoard hidden in plain sight. Grandpa, Landon whispered, awe in his voice. This is it. This is everything. I swallowed hard. Then let's take it and run before. Headlights washed across the lot. We froze. A black SUV rolled in, tires crunching the gravel. Doors slammed. Heavy footsteps approached. Travis's men. Go, I hissed. Hide. We ducked behind the stacks, just as the door creaked open wider. Flashlights cut through the dark. Boss said it's all here, a rough voice muttered. Grab what we can before the feds sniff it out. My pulse hammered. We were trapped. If they found us, it was over. Then I felt Landon's hand on my arm. He leaned close, his voice barely a breath. Trust me. Before I could stop him, he slipped out from behind the boxes, crouching low, and slid a small device into the main power outlet near the door. A blinking light. What are you? I started, but he silenced me with a look. The men moved deeper into the unit, pulling open boxes, cursing at the weight of the cash. Then Landon pressed a button on his phone. A shrill alarm exploded through the facility, echoing like sirens. Red lights blazed across the ceiling. An automated voice boomed. Security breach. Authorities notified. The men panicked. What the hell? Shut it down. They scrambled, knocking over boxes, cursing. But the alarm only grew louder, echoing through the night. I grabbed Landon's arm. You're going to get us killed. No, Grandpa, he said, his eyes locked on mine. I just bought us cover. And he was right. Because within minutes, real sirens wailed in the distance. Police cruisers. The men bolted, cash spilling from their arms, diving into the SUV. Tires screeched, and they tore out of the lot just as red and blue lights flooded the street. Landon and I stepped out, hands raised, as the police stormed the unit. And when they saw the stacks of cash, the ledgers, the drives, I knew this wasn't just a bust. It was the nail in Travis's coffin. The next morning, Agent Crawford sat at our table again, but this time his expression carried something I hadn't seen before. Respect. You two just handed us the key to dismantling an entire ring, he said, flipping through files. We'll be taking this federal. Travis is finished. His associates, too. He looked at Landon. Kid, I don't know how you pulled this off, but you've done more good than you realize. Landon sat tall, but I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. He wasn't a kid anymore. Not after all this. Crawford turned to me. You and your family will be safe now. We'll make sure of it. For the first time in years, I let myself breathe. That evening, Melissa sat with me on the porch. The sky was painted gold and pink, the crickets starting their nightly song. "I don't deserve forgiveness," she said softly. I looked at her, at the woman who had once been my little girl, and felt tears prick my eyes. "Maybe not, but you're still my daughter, and I'm still your father. That doesn't end." She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the warmth of family again. Landon came out, dropping into the chair beside us. "So what now, Grandpa?" I smiled faintly. "Now, we live. We rebuild. We stop looking over our shoulders." He nodded, but I saw the fire still in his eyes, the same fire that saved us all. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized something. Travis thought he'd broken me. He thought he'd stolen my dignity, my future, my family. But in the end, it was his greed that destroyed him. Me? I still had what mattered most. My daughter, my grandson, and the quiet strength to carry on.